Hello, this is Jords, and this is almost a conversation. And right now, I am having a conversation with a good friend of mine. Um, I'd say I'd like to call him an icon, a
Mm.
trailblazer, someone who is like really moving the needle um, with attitudes towards just people from different backgrounds and different circumstances with different preferences. This is Kai-Isaiah Jamal. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
All good, man. All good. All good. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long
It
time coming.
has too long.
Yeah, trust me, trust me. And today we're obviously talking about relationship dynamics, dating dynamics, attitudes towards dating. So the first question I wanted to ask you was, what do you look for in a romantic partner?
Ooh, the loaded question.
Mm,
Um, I think I think it changes. Like I think I've realized that it changes at different points, like of your life. And like maybe if you asked me this, even like maybe a couple of years ago, I probably would have given you a different answer. But I think now the main thing that I ask from anybody that I'm with is that they're supportive, that they're understanding, that they're
mm,
patient. And I guess also that they realize that love is not something that's like linear, like it's not something that's like an A to B straight line. There's so many things, so many obstacles, so many moments that you'll face in this kind of lifetime of your lifetime together. And I
mm,
just want them to be aware that, like, in order to grow together and evolve together, there's moments of uncomfortability, there's moments where you really got to do the work, but in all
mm.
of those moments, they all lead to something that's greater. And in terms of like love, I think, I don't know, you want someone that's going to ride for you unconditionally, like someone
Mm.
that's got your back always.
Yeah. Is that so? You say the main thing of like unconditional love is that it has I don't know, no limits and no bounds, and it's to
I
accept.
think like you can have boundaries, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely like, I think unconditional love can definitely have like limitations in the sense of like what is expected of the
Mm,
kind of love that can have boundaries. But I think the idea that like you love someone and in loving them you can hold them accountable, they can hold themselves accountable, you can
mm.
be aware of like the fact that not both of you are always going to be right, sometimes neither of you are going to be
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
but the fact that you can hold space to have like healthy dialogue with one another, just to be open and honest and have empathy for one another and to like really try and understand, because we're all just people navigating through like all the past trauma, past
Yeah.
situations, past all of that, and it's hard to not bring that into a new space. So we're just all trying to unpack that really in life, so we got to be kind and patient for sure.
Oh yeah, patience is. I think patience is so necessary, and I think one thing you said there is when you said neither of us are going to be right. It reminded me of something that my mum told me because I'm like a very stubborn person. I need to be right, yeah. And this was before I had a girl. My mum was like, if you get into a relationship, you need to realize it's not about being right. It's about being good, and it's about being
That's it.
okay. Do you know what I mean?
That's
Because I
it.
think with like there's so much shit, man, with like pride and ego and I have to be right. But then if you're right, what's at what cost? Do you know what I mean? Like you can be right, but you
Exactly.
could have really annoyed your partner. But
Exactly.
do you know what I'm saying? So
And to be wrong is not always wrong. Like it's not always bad. To be wrong is to be wrong is the only way that you can be educated. To be
mm,
wrong is the only way that you can better yourself. So we all have to address that. At some point, we'll do something and it will be wrong. But
yeah,
like how we rectify that situation, that's what really shapes us, and that's what really, that's what people remember about you.
it's like it's your reaction to things, isn't it? It's your
Exactly.
reaction to things. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I just wanted to obviously touch on a bit about your story. So I think, like I said, for me, you're like inspirational. You're a trailblazer. Like just a couple of accolades. The first black trans model to walk for Louis Vuitton. That's like, come on, man. That's massive. You know what I mean? Even
Yeah, it was
I went
huge.
on Instagram the other day. I saw you with Bad Gal Riri with Rihanna
Yeah,
doing working on something. I'm not sure what quite yet. I've seen you on the cover of is it GQ? Have you been on GQ before as
yeah,
well?
Dodgy, yeah, and ID
ID
and Wonderland. Yeah,
Wonderland.
a
Like,
couple.
you're out here, but like as I think you know I was saying how love has no limits. I think like people have no limits as well, because like yourself, you're an artist, you're a poet, you're a model, you're a trans activist, I'd say. You're a
Hmm.
trans icon. And but with that, I feel like, do you feel like dating you comes, there's a pressure because people feel like they know you before they know you, if that makes sense?
That's it. Like people think
Mm.
they have so much access to you, which is something that like I'm trying to work on in general. Like it's important for us, like the bigger our platforms get, it's important for us to also have like our lives and our lives that we're allowed to live that don't have to be like, you know, outwardly facing all the time. So I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
definitely something. But like also on top of that, I think yeah, now it's different because I was dating, I guess, throughout I was dating someone throughout like the success, like the growth of my success.
Yeah.
And now I'm in another position and it's like, bro, like I don't ever want someone to feel like either it's an opportunity like
Mm.
for them, or if there's if they feel like they know me or they feel like there's elements of me that there's reasons behind why they want to date me. So all of them things like definitely come into play. And I feel like it's just about, I guess, building trusting relationships with people so you know that they're they're integral in what their kind of like ideas are for you and like what they want of you. And I guess I just don't ever want to get into something where someone has an expectation of me because they see me as like a social person, social, like online,
Yeah.
socially something.
Mm.
And then we get to real life, and I'm like, I'm just a nerd, man.
You're just out here, innit?
I'm just a nerd. I'm just out here. That's it.
No, for real. Because I was even gonna say, do you think your public facing life, because your life is quite a lot of your life is quite public facing, a lot of your achievements and success is public facing. Do you think that adds in, like, do you think it will make it more difficult to meet someone, or do you think it will make it more difficult for someone to meet you? If that
I
makes sense.
guess it depends. Yeah, I guess in so it's there's so many elements to it. Like maybe certain people would feel like they wouldn't want to engage with me because maybe we wouldn't run in the same circles.
Mm.
But again, that's not something that like I would care for. Or like, I guess I think it's more that people have more access to me. So it's just like making sure that people's intentions are true. But I think I mean, I won't know until like I'm back running field, but
Yeah.
it is, but it is something because it's like you have to consider all of these things, and you also have to consider somebody else's proximity to that, and if they're
Mm.
comfortable with that, and like I guess especially with my writing, a lot of it is about my life, and like that means that there may be a moment in which like I'm gonna write something about you, and
Yeah.
like no, it might not, it's not gonna be horrible ever, but it might be something that you're a bit like, oh, or like
Hmm.
it makes you see something. But like that is part of, I guess, like dating a creative to know that like
Exactly. I
you're
saw a
also a
quote.
muse, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately though, because I saw a
Yeah,
quote where, oh, what did it say? It said, if an artist falls in love with you, then you'll live forever. And do you know what I mean? It's like,
that's
but
it.
how do you live? Do you get, that's the question. How do you live? Do you
Exactly,
live in that life, or
exactly,
do you live in, or a different? Because it can be two ways, you know. Like the best songs are like breakup songs or beefing songs. Look at the whole
exactly.
album that Beyonce made about Jay-Z. But at the same time, there's so many positive love songs, so much positive stuff, and I think for someone to get with yourself, they have to be ready for that. They also have to be ready for, I think, a whole lot of adversity, because I think with your life in the public eye and the path that you're on, like I said, you're a trailblazer. You're doing things. You're a lot of the things that you're doing. You're the first to do it. Um,
Hmm.
but with that comes a lot of, I'd say, resistance from people who don't fully understand it yet.
Hmm.
Um, how has that been for yourself and for like your past relationships?
Yeah, that's what's hard because like I think especially for trans people, you crave so much like these like spaces and safety of intimacy because
Mm,
there's so many places in which you don't get that. So
yeah.
when you can get access to that at home, it's super important. Like you want to be able to come home and be like, do you know what? The world may be in like one of these, I don't know, situations where I don't know, Trump is saying something or Boris is saying something and people are trying to act like you don't exist. And then suddenly you're at this point where you're like, well, actually, I need to come home and I need to like offload with someone. I need to come home and I need to be like comforted or looked after or reminded of like all of the other things that like exist in being trans. So I think it's always really important to have that foundation at home. But that's a lot, it's not asking a lot of people, but in the society that we're conditioned to, it's asking a lot for people because so many like cisgendered people don't understand,
Mm.
the day-to-day thing. Even my friend said to me the other day, she said, Kai, how often do you think of gender? And I was like every hour.
Mm.
Once in each hour, I'll be like reminded whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, but like it's there. So that like labor you take into your home, you take it into your relationships, you take it into your life. And like you just need somebody who's gonna be down with the cause and who's gonna be like, you know what, like I have to use the capacity and privilege that I have to
Yeah.
provide a room of support and care for you. And often it means that like you need to find someone in which they realize that maybe the balance is going to be off, like maybe they have to give a little bit more in certain times, and
Hmm.
they may have to be more supportive than like the average partner, and they may have to deal with things. I don't know, I've had ex-girlfriends that I must have asked them 20 million times before I've left the house, do I look like a boy, do I look like this,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
will people know, can I wear this, like,
Mm.
oh, my pronouns are this to that. Like they've like and like for a lot of people that's not what they're used to. That's not what
Yeah.
they're what that's not the love that we're ever given to say you can be expectant of this.
Mm.
So when we
Mm.
get to that love, sometimes people find it really hard, and then it translates for the person who's trans or marginalized or whatever. It makes you feel like, oh well, I'm the problem, and
Yeah.
I'm taking up too much space, or I'm and like I think you have to be so selective with who you date, and
Mm.
you have to make sure that someone just does have that room in their life and in their heart, and that they come in and that they understand what it is, because to date you is to date you, but also it's politically it's something, it's
Yeah, yeah.
politically date, there's a radicalization with somebody that I date,
Mm.
and I think they have to be aware of that too.
Yeah. No, you're spot on, man. That's proper, like, very interesting to hear it from that perspective, to be honest, because I think I don't think there's anything that can compare to your situation and your journey. But I think, as for me as a black man, I've
No, but that's
come
a
into
very, yeah, it's
situations.
a very close parallel.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I've come into situations where, especially being a black public facing figure. So when I put the song out Black and Ready, I had people
Hmm.
online saying some just really ignorant things. Do you know what I mean? And it's out of a lack of education. Um, but I didn't. You don't realize that at the time. And sometimes people say shit and it just gets on you, and then you have to
Hmm.
hold that weight and take you home. And you need a partner at home that's really going to hold you down and understand where it's coming from, what
Hmm.
it's coming from, but also at the same time understand that they don't completely understand. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
and that's
So
really
from
hard for people to comprehend, that like they can help you without ever being able to like, that they can empathize with you without ever being able, no, they can sympathize with you without
sympathize.
actually being able to empathize in the setting, that they can't actually step into your shoes, and they can't
Yeah,
actually like live your lived experience. In the
yeah.
same in like interracial relationships, like
Mm,
I know so many couples during BLM interracial relationships who found it hard. I found it hard. It's hard to be in
mm-hmm.
proximity to like whiteness in a time in which whiteness is so like outwardly violent, in the same way that it's hard for people to be close to cisness when cis people are kind of like making all these rules and
Mm,
demands and obstacles for trans people. It's this like, you will never walk in my shoes and I'll never walk in yours,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
ultimately we need to find a way to walk together, and
Hundred percent.
I think that's love. Like that's what you want, someone that's going to do the journey with you.
100%. Like, like I said, I called you yesterday, and we just went through some things, and one of the first things I said to you was like, there may be some things that I get wrong. I may say some things wrong. I might say the wrong shit. Um,
Hmm.
but it's not out of anything. It's just out of lack of education,
Yeah.
or I haven't been exposed to it so much
Yeah.
before, or to transgender people so much before. So, but from yourself in a partner, what do you like? What attitude do you have towards that? Is it a challenge for you to understand that and accept that? Do you know what I mean? That someone might call you by the
Yeah.
wrong pronoun, and you know,
I think, yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm always open. Like I said to you yesterday, like I'm open to people making mistakes. People are, it's a mistake is only what we name it to be a mistake, you know. Like
Mm-hmm.
somebody may say to me, "Oh, she," and I might be like, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. It's a slip of the tongue." Or like, you know, people are conditioned to think certain things. I think with a partner, I'm like, I want you to be able to get like the basic stuff is like you understand my identity, you get my pronouns, etc., etc., that kind of stuff. And then on top of it, it's like there's conversations. I think there's always conversations. I think like I mean, I've had conversations with like my ex-partners about, you know, comfortability and like how it changes. And like sometimes I'm like, I don't want you to touch me, or sometimes I don't want you to be near me, or sometimes I'm cool with that, and sometimes I'm okay with the fact that, you know, we can walk down the street and like as close to a straight couple as possible. And then
Mm.
there's other days where we walk down the street and I'm like, well, I'm invisible because we look like a straight couple. And like there's so many layers to it. So I'm patient in the fact that I don't expect to meet anybody and be like, you get it, all of it straight
Mm.
away, because I think there's literally no way that someone can do that. But what I hope is that in the same way that they will be teaching me something about how it is to be with them, that I can do the same. And I think, you know, it's like there's no rule book on like how to love a trans person. You
Mm.
just have to do it individually for that person and just be open to listening to someone say, and that should be in all relationships. These are
Yeah, I
my
was gonna say.
needs, and
Mm.
that's it. And that's the thing, like it transcends past gender and sexuality and all of that in the basis of every relationship, whether it be romantic, platonic, family binding, whatever. There should always just be like a, okay, this is me, this is you. We grow together, we learn
Mm-hmm.
together. That this is a safe space. You don't need to be almost you don't need to be politically correct here. Like we can find our own language, and like
Mm.
for me that's super important. But
Yeah.
then I also outwardly want them to be vocal, you know, on platforms and stuff about other matters, because I think that's really important. You
Yeah.
know, somebody who's rallying for you in the same way that you would hope that your partner would be posting about BLM and attending protests, and like
Mm-hmm.
that's an expectation that we have from a racial standpoint. Is the same expectation that I hope I would have. Yeah, I know that I have in gender, in all moral kind of like
Mm-hmm.
situations. To
Mm-hmm.
be fair, in general, I'm like, you know, I want someone who's not afraid to say that like this is what I stand for, and this is what I love, as well as this is who I love.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think what struck me with a lot of what you're saying, it's all relationships. You know what I mean? Like you have to ride for who you're with, and you before you ride for who you're with, you have to know who you're riding for. Do you know what I'm saying? And I
Oh,
think,
sorry, it froze for a
oh, did you
hot
do?
sec. I
I
lost you for a little bit.
can't remember what I said. I know it sounded good though.
You
When I
guys
say
have it, I think, on your side. It's good.
no, but I was saying like with what struck me about what you said, it counts for all relationships, man. You got to ride for who you're with, and you have to know who you're with, and you have to
Hmm.
be willing to grow with who you're with, and you have to be willing to let that person teach you things, whatever those things may be. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
Exactly.
people have different love languages, and like you said, love has no limit. Love doesn't discriminate. Love is love, innit? So like with those kind of things, it's like yeah, you just have to know who you're riding for and what you're standing for. But at the same time, you have the requirement that if you're going to stand with me, you have to really stand with me because, like I said, especially with someone like yourself, what you're doing is very important. It's genuinely very important. Like I've learned so much about the trans community just through watching your story and just through interacting with you. So I just wanted to say, yeah, everything that you're doing is so important, and you're showing me a lot about love. Do you know what I mean? You're showing me a lot about love, and yeah,
And
you
that's,
might.
I think that's it. Like right now, I'm writing so much. I'm
Mm,
writing the EP, the EP.
yeah, get me on
But
that,
I'm
man.
writing, yeah, that needs to come,
Come
because
on.
that's what it's all about. Like my whole, and I think COVID has really taught me this idea of like love. Like we have this idea, yeah, that romantic love is the only love in our whole life that we search for. And I
Mm,
wrote this piece the other day, and it was about Valentine's Day, and it was this idea that like we as humans can actually do, when we deep it, we can do anything. We can go to the moon. We can literally put electricity into a plug. We
mm,
can, find ways to build like islands out of nothing, but the only thing that we care about is who we go to bed with and who
Yeah,
we
yeah,
love
yeah.
and who loves us, and that's it. And that's like, sometimes it's so crazy, and sometimes I have to sit there and be like, it's so pathetic, it's so like beautifully pathetic that we
Mm,
like we can do all this, and the only thing that we're actually here for is this one feeling that like drives everything we do. But in doing that, it's so important to acknowledge all the different types of love, like the
yeah.
love that we have for community, the love that we have for friends, the love that we have for people who, you know, we meet on nights out, the love that we have for our cities, our hometowns, like all of
Mm,
these things. These are all important investments of love. And I think we
mm.
have to stop holding this romantic love as the kind of pinnacle of love, because platonic love is, that's something else. Like your friends that are there for you forever, that's something else. Like that's unconditional love for real.
I think it takes a lot of people. It takes people a lot of time to realize that, though. But I think for me, like I've had friends from the opposite sex, but when you're growing up with them, it's just like, oh, it's just because you're from the opposite sex, it has to be some sort of
You're a couple. Yeah, yeah,
physical
yeah, yeah.
attraction or something like that. But there's, like you said, there's a love outside of that, and there's a universal love in it. So on that note, I'm gonna wrap it up. It has been
Yes.
great to speak with you, my G.
Bare love.
Looking forward to everything that you have coming. I know you got some more crazy works in there.
Goodies. Some goodies are up the
You know what I
sleeve
mean?
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? And
For
that
sure.
EP,
And you as well. No, what you're doing is incredible. And like, yeah, it's amazing. And I'm gassed to see it. And you're changing the way that, you know, black men look at love and look at emotions. And that's part of this conversation too. So big up yourself.
100%, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
All right, love.
Bless. Bless.